Here are 5 situations where you may want to rethink scaling your ads. My name is Luke Smith. Welcome to Ad Spend Secrets. In this episode, I'm going to run through 5 different situations you might face as a brand owner when you're scaling your ads, where you should really pause and rethink, have a look at the numbers, dig into the data, and figure out whether it is worth scaling. Maybe you should hold on ad spend, or if you need to potentially retreat and scale back a little bit. So reason number 1 is stock. So as a business owner, you would know that things are moving in and out of the business. Some products sell really well, some others don't sell quite as well. But if you've got a lot of ad spend moving through, particularly on platforms like Meta, where it may not be directly tied to the product ID, and you're running ads that are promoting products that are selling really well, all of a sudden that product goes out of stock, your conversion rate drops significantly. That's a pretty obvious one where you may want to decrease ad spend. And there's benefits to using formats like catalog sales campaigns, or if you're over on Google running your shopping campaigns, where if something goes out of stock, it will automatically pull it out of the ad if it's using a dynamic shopping feed. But you can get stuck in situations where you might be setting up an ad manually. It might be really geared around a top selling product, and it might be directing people to that product page. If that product then goes out of stock, or a key size or a key color goes out of stock that sells well, that can impact your conversion rates, and your CPA is going to increase. So if you're not tracking ads in your account that may be product specific like that, and they're not going to automatically update based on stock availability, that's something I'll definitely look into. That is a situation where it's easily missed, that your performance might start to sort of slow down or die, and if you've got lots of ads in an account, you can potentially miss that one and not understand why the conversion rate has dropped. So stock is a big one there. Obviously, if you're well stocked up, you can continue to push ad spend as long as you've got that sort of ready to go out to customers. So number 2 is margins. This is a pretty obvious one. Again, these 5 situations are easily missed, but kind of seem intuitive and obvious. But a lot of brands and clients we work with, brands we speak with, most don't know this one in particular, which is their break-even metric. So we have a lot of conversations around what kind of return on ad spend they may be seeing and what kind of return on ad spend they want to see. But they're not really firm or grounded in the return on ad spend that they are profitable above. And knowing that sort of break-even number is really, really key to scaling your ad account. So you need to know if you're in the red, you're in the orange, or you're in the green. So for one of our brands, we have determined based on their numbers, we take in their variable costs, we take in even their current ad spend and their fixed expenses, and we know that they're in the green up to $14. And so we, instead of running a set budget, what we actually do is we just continue to push ad spend up until $10 per order, a CPA of $10. And so what that means is that we still have that margin of safety, but because we know those numbers, we have the confidence to scale ad spend. And it's really about confidence in this instance. When we're talking about margins, you need to know what that break-even number is. What is the CPA that you need to see as a whole for your business to be able to inject more ad spend, and just know that you're going to make that little slither of net profit per order that's moving through the business. Number 3 is seasonality. This is one where some businesses may face it more so than others. For example, if you're a summer brand, you might be selling board shorts, for example, and it's really going to be those hot months leading up to spring and summer where you're going to be selling those things like hotcakes. On the other side, you might be selling rain jackets or raincoats, and it's really a winter brand, so you're kind of waiting for that weather to cool and people to start to think about what they might need in a month or so, and see that sort of demand start to pick up. And so what you want to do is look at the year as a whole. If you're in that kind of situation, look at your budgeting on ads for the last few years, and really look at your marketing efficiency ratio is a handy one. So what percentage of advertising dollars went in and what revenue came out at each month of the year, and sort of tracking that trend line and doing it back a number of years. Then you can look at, okay, well, here's the MER or the blended ROAS that we see for the business on average. But during these key months, this is where it peaks it increases, say, from 4 to 6. and we're able to get much more volume through even at a return on ad spend of 6. So that kind of historical data is really important to understand. Again, it's a confidence thing. How much can I spend on ads for this next key season? Or on the other hand, how much less do we need to spend if you're a raincoat brand, for example, in those months where it might be warmer, so January, February. And this leads into the next point, which is number 4, and we're talking about new customer return on ad spend. So here is a number that's often misconstrued or maybe lumped into return on ad spend in general, but here we're actually separating the returning customer numbers from the new customer numbers and looking at what the return is on our ad spend to acquire new customers. And why that's important is you want to understand firstly how the entire marketing system is working together. We see brands that may have a lot of email marketing working in the background. They'll see a larger number of returning customers come back in, and overall the CPA or the cost per order looks really healthy. It starts to decline, but what we're seeing is actually maybe there's less new customers coming into the business because email's doing such a powerful job. They're starting to build up that customer base, and the ad spend starts to circle the existing engaged audiences, and it starts to really increase as a percentage of budget going towards engaged and existing customers. You can see that start to creep up, and if you're not keeping an eye on that number, what you might see is a lack of new customers coming through each month, and you might actually see a slowdown, but it might not be immediate. It might be something that will creep up on you in a few months, 6 months, even 12 months down the track, where you've stopped warming audiences, you've stopped filling that top of the funnel. So having a look at your new customer return on ad spend and your new customer CPA, cost per acquisition there. What is the CAC? What is the cost to acquire a customer? Again, just really siphoning out that new audiences versus the returning audiences there, so you can figure out what that sort of segmentation and growth number looks like, and make sure that you are investing for future growth by getting in front of new people, new eyeballs, and not just sort of spending all of your money on the highest return on ad spend possible, which might be those who are most aware. They might be searching your brand name on Google with the brand search, which is always a high return on ad spend, or they might be an existing customer seeing an ad for the third time on Facebook, and they're very likely to buy. So you might see an artificially high return on ad spend in that situation. So that's another situation, again, where you just need to keep a close eye on it and figure out if it's worth pulling back or increasing spend. In this situation, we're talking about existing and engaged audiences and how you can better allocate the percentage of spend there, upweight or downweight accordingly. And number 5, we're talking about net profit and how some numbers can be misleading, particularly when doing sales. And I've got an example here. We touched on margins earlier. That was more in the sense of your break-even metrics and how do you have that confidence to know if you should double down and push further, or if you should stay the same in terms of ad spend, or if you should potentially retreat. But what we're looking at here is a situation that really, really flies under the radar, and most brands won't actually see or understand that this is happening. And I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to just have a look at a quick example, because it just makes it really clear what's going on when this is the case. So what happens is you might see your return on ad spend look really good during a sale. You might see your marketing efficiency ratio look pretty good during a sale, and you might just be thinking, well, we are absolutely killing it. We're seeing, a higher average order value, say. We're seeing good revenue. We're seeing our scale increase, and the efficiency is sort of remaining the same. But these kind of metrics skip over some of the more nuanced numbers around profit and product costs that go into, each order. And what I'm specifically referring to here is the case where brands will go on sale and there's more products being added to cart. And we'll just have a look here. So imagine you're about to go on sale, but the month prior, it's kind of business as usual, right? Before running your discount, you're seeing an AOV of around $70. You get about 1.3 on average items per order, and you've got product costs of around $18. You might be paying $7 shipping, and you might be seeing a gross profit per order of $45. Looks pretty good on paper. Then you say, okay, we're going to run a discount. We've got, Black Friday coming up, for example, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And what you might see is a higher average order value. And this is very, very common for brands, in which case you're thinking, awesome, the cart value is going up. But the thing that gets skipped over and glossed over is the units per order. So this will go, up by 2x in a lot of cases. And what that means is that in combination with a discount, and you'll see this in a second. So you've got 2.6 items per order in this example. You've given away 25% to get the person through the door and increase that conversion rate. You've got your cost, your COGS here of $18, right? And you can see it's $18 per unit in the first example. But now you've got more units in the cart. So your product costs have gone from, in the first instance, just over $18 if you've got a 1.3 there. So you're now seeing about $46.8. So you're seeing 2.6 times your previous, your product costs, and that gets missed in a lot of cases with most brands. And I don't think a lot of agencies would be sort of tracking this or keeping this in mind when they're working with brands and running their sales, because agencies will typically report on a return on ad spend, and they'll be communicating to the client, this is amazing, we should put more ad spend into it, we're seeing really good things. And the client is receiving this, but they're maybe that feeling that there's a bit of a disconnect, and this might be why, because their profit margins are actually getting eaten into, but it's not something that's obvious if you're just looking at even store level metrics or platform level metrics, where you're looking at return on ad spend and marketing efficiency ratios. So you'll also see in this example, during the sale, there might be more shipping costs if there's obviously more items in that order. And so you're seeing the gross profit here is $36. Well, previously it was $45. So all of a sudden they've actually lost profit, even though there's a higher cart value, they might be seeing more revenue. So profit in this example dropped by 20%, even though the average order value increased. So digging into these numbers and looking at the makeup of a cart pre and post sale, it really gives a lot of information. And if you combine this with the knowledge that you have around your break-evens and your margins as a business when you're not discounting, and then you factor all of these potential outcomes in when you are discounting, then you can really forecast how much you can spend, and you can do so being conservative, factoring in that 20% discount in this example. You could do so factoring in an additional product cost in each order, the makeup of each order, because you know that if you discount, you might get those extra items added to the cart. So that's one to keep in mind. If you're a brand owner, if you're working with an agency, flag that with them and do some forecasting on the next sale. Even have a look back at previous sales, and you'll be able to see, okay, well, this did eat into margins more than we thought. So hope that was helpful. If you have any questions around situations where you may want to increase spend and you're unsure, or you feel like you may need to decrease spend because you're feeling not very profitable, maybe the return on ad spend you're looking at last year is higher than this year, and you're a bit unsure as to what the reason might be, just touch base. We'll jump in, we'll do a quick audit for you, absolutely free. Simplyconverting.com is how you can find me, and I hope that was helpful. Make sure you subscribe if you like this kind of content, because I'll release more sort of episodes like this.